That's the traction component. And that's bringing the vision down to the ground, creating a 90-day world, because humans, about every 90 days, you got to pick them up, dust them off, pat them on the back, kick them in the butt, whatever that human has for their individual coaching. And then they recommit for another 90 days, and then we move forward. And then we create a meeting pulse to make sure we're not over meeting about next week's meetings, big meeting. And we're just having shorter, fewer meetings with more substance, without a bunch of meetings, to actually have time to go execute on the commitments that we made. And as long as those commitments come true at 90% or higher every week, that's the undeniable traction that people feel. So I just described the 6 key components of the entrepreneurial operating system.
Your business's success depends on relationships with customers, relationships with employees, and relationships with stakeholders. What do they all have in common? They're all human. Because no matter if your business is B2B or B2C, it's really H to H, human to human. Welcome to the Human Connection Podcast. I'm your host, Karl Ponto. Each week I'll bring you stories, insights, and practical advice from experts that you can apply to your growing company and daily life. This week I'm excited to connect with Chris Hallberg. Chris, known as the Business Sergeant, is a top-ranked leadership expert, military veteran, and serial entrepreneur who transforms good companies into great ones fast. Ranked number 9 on Inc. magazine's top 50 leadership and management experts, ahead of Simon Sinek, Chris blends battlefield-tested leadership with the Entrepreneurial Operating System to deliver proven results. He scaled and sold a startup during the Great Recession at an 8x multiplier, built royalty-generating sales systems, and became Colorado's first EOS implementer, guiding 100-plus teams to achieve 90% or more employee engagement rates and 100 or more best places to work awards. Today, he co-builds a $5 million AI-driven EOS platform while coaching billion-dollar contractors, national chains, and franchises with a remarkable 85% success rate. With his no-nonsense, high-energy style, Chris simplifies strategy, strengthens culture, and shows leaders how to drive 30% or more EBIT on predictable systems, making him a powerhouse guest for any podcast. I'm sure I agree with that now. Congrats on your success in uncertain times, and welcome to the Human Connection Podcast.
Great to be here, Karl. Thanks for having me on your program.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk with you about this because it seems like what really makes a difference between a team and a really high-performing elite team is the existence of strong accountability and execution standards that obviously needs to start with the leadership. So how do you help teams build that, or what do you see is working today for companies that are trying to create those sorts of teams at their businesses?
Yeah, it kind of starts with having an operating system. So just to plug EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System, aka Traction, some of the different names it goes by, is a simple set of holistic tools to align and synchronize all the moving parts of the business. So accountable to what? Like, you have to have a plan that's worthy of inspiration and clarity and getting people that want that same thing. And if we don't have a common shared goal, then we have the opportunity to have a bunch of individual goals. And what do you want to do? And what do you want to do? And then you end up trying to accommodate more than one, and you achieve none. So it's quite simply, the basics of an operating system are, the vision component, a simple 2-page business plan. This is what we're doing. If you don't want to do exactly what we want to do, then please do that elsewhere, because we're really focused on this. And it's much easier to create a vision and then find other people who find it attractive, that want to stay focused, executing on really well all facets of that vision, than it is to be overly inclusive and put 1 million addresses into the GPS and get to none of them expeditiously. Second key component, it's a people component, right? We're a P2P, H to H, human to human business, right? In your intro, right people share your core values. You want your values to actually be inclusive to the right-minded people, and you want them to repulse and be exclusive to people who don't value what you value in a business setting. So we don't want to be overly inclusive. We want to be actually exclusive. Unless you're weird like we are and care about what we care, bless your heart, go do that elsewhere. Wish you the best. It's a free country. You can do what you want, but no reason to be forced into doing what individuals want to do. We're the company. We get to set the destination. The people in the right seats, using EOS terms, GWC, or get, want, and have the capacity. If you share the core values, you're the right person. And if you get, want, and have the capacity in the seat, then that's what you need. There are 4 combinations. That's the first one and what we're looking for. Next most common is the right person in the wrong seat. Culturally, they're one of us. Hey, you, do you know how to do this? Not really. Get over there. You're the best I got. And then a year later, we wonder why they're not, fantastically successful in that role. Well, they were never trained. They were never empowered. They were just proximity, right? Right person, wrong seat. Usually our fault in management. Third option, wrong person, right seat. That's the brilliant jerk. That's someone who's very profitable, but they're caustic, and you can't build a great team. And unicorns continue to bite through the fence because we have this person, and they're an egomaniac, narcissist, unkind teammate. And then the last one is the wrong person in the wrong seat. They should be fairly obvious to spot, yet I still find them in the wild in my travels. So like once you get to like 80% right people, right seat, it feels good. But 20% is still enough to make the experience not great. Once you curate your team to about 90%, they'll run the other 10% out, one way or the other. So like it's a mass and a volume thing. Most companies, including the ones listening today, are usually about 30% engaged. So someone offers your employees another $2 an hour, off they go. So basically, third key component, data component. How do I know if we have the right people in the right seats? How is everyone measured? What's a scorecard? Activities, results? Are people meeting their commitments? When you're strong in vision, strong in people, strong in data, your business is open, honest, lucid. Issues stick out like a sore thumb. Fourth key component. Let's identify, discuss, and solve. And we'll have an active issues list. Yeah, I'm down to solve that. Ooh, that's an issue, but it's a long-term issue. So we'll put it on the long-term list, and we'll do some pre-work so we can go get it later when the time's right. And then we have a boneyard or a solved list where old issues once in a while will zombie out of the earth, brains. And then we realize we solved them at the symptomatic level, not at the root level. Then we move to the fifth key component, which is the process component. And that's just simply checklists, outlines, go fast things, 20% that gives you the 80%. What's the way of the company? And then we go to the final key component, the sixth key component, and that's the traction component. And that's bringing the vision down to the ground, creating a 90-day world, because humans, about every 90 days, you got to pick them up, dust them off, pat them on the back, kick them in the butt, whatever that human has for their individual coaching. And then they recommit for another 90 days, and then we move forward. And then we create a meeting pulse to make sure we're not over meeting about next week's meetings, big meeting. And we're just having shorter, fewer meetings with more substance without a bunch of meetings, so we actually have time to go execute on the commitments that we made. And as long as those commitments come true at 90% or higher every week, that's the undeniable traction that people feel. So I just described the 6 key components of the entrepreneurial operating system. There's other operating systems out there, right, that are smaller, not as scaled, but they're all very similar. They all do kind of the same thing. And then enter like a tool, a piece of software to glue it all together. That's the Go Expand app that I created that has an EOS license. Because if you have all these great concepts decided, but you're not actively managing that expectation, that can just float away after a couple of great days of planning, where the software puts that vision in front. It allows us to stack rank, and I can see that this person is the right person in the right seat because their performance is to the right, and their culture is up and down. So they are up and to the right versus down and to the left in the red, where they are the wrong person, the wrong seat. So really, the Go Expand move is just to remove the subjectivity from these conversations, because sometimes a simple red number doesn't tell me the story. But if I show you in a graphical form the pattern and shape of that number versus other numbers, I can say this is an individual issue, not a team issue. And then when I have the context, when you say, I don't think that person's in the right seat, you could say, well, how could they not be if you consider this person to be the right person in the right seat? And there is their relativity. So back to the theory of relativity. If you don't know what a number means and how it's relative inside your company, it's it's not really a valuable number. Whereas once we have the right numbers and then we can visualize, people tend to get, oh, this is the problem. So if you don't kind of show them or paint the story for them, it can be very subjective. So really removing the last bit of the hardest thing about all of this consulting, coaching, training, facilitating work is the subjectivity. Some teams inherently are good at it and some aren't. So, trying to level the playing field and let everyone be really good at it. My thought is if you have to really go out of your way and ignore something, then that's fine. You ignored the 14 warnings that this is happening. That, at your own peril now, move forward.
Yeah, I think it's having the ability to understand the system to go through this process to transform a team and transform the business results is really important. I think it's so important to notice how the first steps were about getting the right people involved, because so many companies just jump right to the systems with the wrong people. And it doesn't matter how awesome your system is, if the people aren't inspired to use it and aren't working on that, like have that shared vision, that same direction they're all working towards, and the culture is not there, then you're gonna have the best systems, but no one's going to use it and they're not going to use it well. And then it's going to be disastrous. And so the fact that so many businesses are overlooking that and are trying to kind of cut that out of the process because it seems like it's messy and hard, because it is, but it's such an important foundation for the business to succeed. And it's like what way I've described it in the past a bunch on the show is that for these business relationships to work, you need two things. You need mutually beneficial transactions, which is like rebar, and you need personal connections, which is like concrete. Just have one or the other, you're in trouble, because concrete alone is going to crack and fade over time, and rebar by itself is kind of hard to build on top of. And most companies, they have all these systems and tools in the rebar side of things and no concrete. And they're like, why don't you want to sit on this rebar way of sticking out of the ground? It's like, well, it hurts and it makes us bleed. We're going to leave now. And so getting the people side of things down and really, like I said, having the right people in the right seats and getting that to the 90% so that it becomes self-sustaining is totally necessary for success. And then there's also that you mentioned later on that I really think is important, is having the tool to make it into a habit, because so often people do like these workshops, they do something once ago, they leave and go, wow, I'm super inspired, that was great. And then by the time they get home or the next morning, they wake up and their brain's already dumped it all and they're just back in the same way of doing things. They don't actually change behavior because that's just not how the brain's work. The brain's wired to work. And so having a tool that one gives the context and all the data you're getting, because I guess if you throw numbers at people, they're just going to go, okay, that's a big number. I have no idea what that means or why I should care. So giving the context and then making it into like the accountability partner or accountability tool that gets people to start building those new habits and the way of leading their team and the way they interact with their team and the way they approach business is essential, because willpower is a finite resource and kind of poetically cruel, tied to your blood sugar. So when it comes to like dieting and stuff, you're trying to not eat the cookie when you're really hungry. It's hardest for you to do it, but it's like that's going to wear out. But if you can build new habits as a leader, when it comes to the way you think about hiring for culture fit, not just skills, and the way you approach, like I said, the meetings and doing fewer meetings and having more of that concrete poured around your systems, and it's way more likely your business is going to succeed than trying to force a bunch of people that are not the right people and they're in the wrong seats to use some flashy new system because you got like a sparkly jingly keys in front. Oh, this new hype like tool to use. Oh, let's start using it, and then it's going to fix all our problems. Because it's again trying to put a Band-Aid on a bullet wound, and that's not going to really solve the underlying problem, which is you don't have the right people. And at the end of the day, if all the people don't show up for work, you don't have a company anymore. So you need the right people in the right seats going in the same direction. That's what makes it work.
That is exactly what makes it work. And even like if you're familiar with the bad apple effect, right? They had some 80 some studies, and in all 80 some cases, a C player was introduced to a small team of A players, and within minutes, the A players adopted the C mentality and the execution, and not a single C player became a B player in the presence of the A player. So like it is the lowest common denominator. You move as fast as your slowest person. Your chain is literally as weak as strong as the weakest link. So think about the way I like to explain this to people is like professional sports or the Olympics. Like you have to be good. Like you have to be like the best your high school has ever seen to get a shot to be at a D1 school. And there's a bunch of D1 schools, and you have to be amazing at a D1 school to even have a shot of a professional career. And then once you get into professional leagues, you have to be great in the minor leagues to get a chance to the major leagues. And to stay in the major leagues, you need to be amazing and consistent, or you'll be sent to the minor leagues. And then once you're an all-star in the major leagues, you go to the all-star game on your own G5, right? Like there's later, but what is the difference is the curation. As you go up the ladders of professional sports, let's just intertwine that with business. The Avalanche, right? My hockey team here in Denver, they have a system, and it's different than what the Wild in Minnesota or the Red Wings in Detroit play. They all have a different system, but the system is predicated on the players they have and their physical and mental abilities. You can't just hire some new coach with a fast run and gun system if you have curated a group of defensive players. So now extrapolate this up to business. This is like what we want to do. Let's stop letting minor league, intramural beer league sports behavior happen while we're supposed to be at the Olympic training facility, right? And if we have 20 people who want to be on the Olympic team and we have 4 spaces, well, I'm pretty sure the fastest 4 are going to get the spots. And the slowest ones are going to be told to suck less, train harder, and I'll see you in 4 years. And when you don't maintain a standard, you get the standard of whatever people think is what they should give you in the absence. So are you running a unprofessional, a professional, or a super high competitive professional team? I would argue it starts with the mindset. If we're not saying we want to be above average, well, congratulations. You are the epitome of average. You're not extra great. You're not super bad. You are super average. And your company will attract average employees, and you will have average results. And we'll have a few people that might have been on a high-performing team in the past or were an elite athlete and understand the difference between what the elite do and what we do. So companies hire me because they would like to be well above average. They would like to be class leading. And, almost 200 Best Places to Work awards, you don't get your employees to give an anonymous survey from the Business Journal and say the business is awesome. If it's not awesome, it's an anonymous email. If they don't like the coffee or your benefits, like that's showing up. You're not going to win. So like the simple fact that I have all these third-party awards with my graduates is a testament. When you curate a team of people that want to be elite and you don't allow people to be anything less than, that's the result. So we do it with an operating system, we do it with the Go Expand software tool, and then we do it with commitment. But, if people aren't committed, you can't hold them accountable. So people like to go right to accountability, but they go past, like I'll quote Pat Lencioni's 5 dysfunctions of a team. You got to be vulnerable, trust. Hey, this isn't good. Got to get into healthy conflict. If we can't have healthy conflict, then I can't gain commitment. And if I'm not committed, then accountability is the 4th one. Then the last one at the top of the pyramid is the results. Everyone wants to start with the accountability, but we have to be able to speak the truth. We have to be able to disagree and then get on board. And then we have to commit. Even when it's hard, we're going to do this thing. And when that's happening and people are committed, they hold themselves accountable. You don't have to hold the right people accountable. You've explained the great game and they want to play it at an elite level. So that's at the highest level. That's to describe, I just need a founder who wants to be great and a handful of people that agree. And even if half your leadership team is there, we'll fix that with a new half leadership team, because new people love the values. New people love the plan, and new people rarely fight against what the greater good needs to have happen. I can't say the same for some legacy folks who are trying to hijack your business or, do it their way. But that's not how the Olympics work. The coach picks the players, and if the players aren't working hard, the other players or the coach send them down, and then they get somebody else that actually wants to be there. And if you're not a slow to hire, quick to fire environment, you are going to be average or below average with that mentality pretty much every time.
Yeah, definitely has to start with the leader's attitude and commitment to it, because that will radiate out through the entire team. Well, thank you so much for connecting with me today, Chris. If you enjoyed this episode of the Human Connection podcast, please like, leave a review, and subscribe. If you want to connect with myself or Chris more, check out the links in the show notes. And remember, no matter if your business is B2B or B2C, it's really H to H, human to human. Happy connecting.